Hi everyone. In today's video, we're going to go through IXL assignment QFU, adding integers. Before we get on to IXL and do some examples together, let's remind ourselves of the adding integer rules. So this is a great opportunity. If you don't already have this in your notes, maybe pause the video and add it to your notes, or pause the video and take a little screenshot. But here are two rules for adding integers. If you have two numbers and the signs are the same, you go ahead and just add the numbers like normal and you keep the sign. Because if we're adding two positive numbers together, we're continuing down the positive side of that number line, so our answer will remain positive. Same is true if we have two negatives. If we're adding two negatives, we're continuing to go down the negative side of the number line, and so you add them together and your answer just stays negative because we're just going deeper into the negative side of the number line. But if you have signs that are different, so a positive number and a negative number that you're adding, even though you're adding them, you think of it like subtraction, because that negative number, when you only have one of them, is saying, hold up, we're doing the opposite. The opposite of addition is subtraction. Another way to think of it is if we have a negative number, we are taking that away. And remember in elementary school, when you first learned subtraction, your teacher probably called it takeaway. They might have said, we're going to learn takeaway today. Well, if you take something away, you are subtracting. You are getting less of that amount. So that's why we can think of it like subtraction. But then the trick comes into play is, what's our answer going to be? Will our answer be positive or negative? Well, you keep the sign of the heavier number. Another way to say that is the larger absolute value. So if we kind of look at our pictures here, they help us. If we're adding two numbers together and we have a really large absolute value, we have a really heavy number that's positive, and we're adding a smaller negative, we're taking that negative away. So we're going to subtract in our minds, but our answer will still be positive because the positive outweighed it. And then if the reverse happened, this bottom picture here, we have two numbers that we're adding together, but this time the negative number, that's the larger absolute value. That's the heavier value. When their signs are different, subtract in your mind, and then you keep the sign of the heavier number. So in this case, the negative number was heavier, so your answer would be negative. All right, let's switch on over to IXL so we can actually practice this. We can see this come to life with numbers. But like I said, these are great notes. You can refer to these, whether you like the word form or the picture form better. They represent the same thing. So you can use those as you practice the IXL skill until you get really good at it and get confident with it. All right, here we are on IXL. There's more than one way to access the skill, but just a quick reminder, one way that you can access it is come up here to the little magnifying glass, the search bar. And when you click on that, you can type in the code QFU. And then the first thing that pops up will show you that it's the match skill ID, add integers. You select it and it'll take you right there. Another quick little reminder that I wanted to go over is IXL itself has some help for you. So after you finish watching this video, if you're still a little confused, sometimes it helps to hear it from another person, hear it from another voice. IXL has a video they've made. Just click on this and you can watch it. Or if you'd rather see an example in like textbook form where it talks it out word for word along with the example, you can click on that and learn with an example. So make sure that you check out these resources IXL has for you. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So our first problem here says -2 + 3. So the first thing I do is I figure out whether my numbers have the same sign or different signs, because I have two different rules. Remember, if the signs are the same, you add them and keep the sign. If the signs are different, you subtract and keep the heavier sign. So in this case, my signs are different. I have a -2, but then a +3. So because their signs are different, I'm going to subtract. 3 minus 2 is 1, but then I keep the sign of the heavier number. 3 is heavier than 2, and 3 is heavier, 3 is positive, meaning my answer would be a positive 1. Now, when you type positives into IXL, you don't really need the plus sign. I just put it there for emphasis. All right, let's try this one. 3 plus -5. Once again, ask yourself, are the signs the same or different? They're different. The 3 is positive, the 5 is negative. So because their signs are different, I'm going to subtract. 5 minus 3 is 2. But now I need to decide whether the answer is positive or negative. 5 is the heavier number. It's the larger absolute value. And 5 is negative, meaning our answer will be -2. Now, if you would like to see this one worked out on a number line to help you understand it better, let's just do that real quick. All right, I made a quick little number line down here. It doesn't have to be pretty if you like to use the number line method. But with this, we can say, all right, we start at 3 and we are adding a -5. Well, normally adding tells us to go to the right, but that negative says, nope, it's the opposite. We're taking it away, which means we're going to go to the left. So we'll go to the left 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces, and that lands us at our answer of -2. All right, now let me show you using another method, another strategy. You can use counters, or sometimes you've heard them called as algebra tiles. So we can represent that in this case by just using pluses and minuses. So we have a +3, which means we have 3 pluses, 3 positive, 1, 2, 3. That's our 3. And then we have 5 negatives. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We can combine our 0 pairs here. A positive and a negative, they cancel each other out. They make a 0 pair and equal nothing. So that cancels out. Here's another 0 pair that cancels, another 0 pair that cancels. And what are we left with? We are left with 2 negatives. So there's another way to look at it. All right, next problem. Add -5 plus -2. Are the signs the same or different? This time, the signs are the same. We have -5 and -2. When the signs are the same, that means we're continuing down that same side of the number line. So if I even just draw a quick one here, say these are the zeros, these are the positive numbers, and the negatives. If we're starting somewhere over here at -5 and I'm adding a -2, that means I'm continuing this way. I'm continuing down the negatives. So my answer is going to be a negative. So our rule tells us when the signs are the same, you add them and keep the sign the same. So 5 plus 2 is 7, but we're continuing down that negative side of the number line, so it would be a -7. All right, let's look at this one using counters if you want to see how counters can work for a problem like this. Well, if we use our counters, we have -5, so that means we have 5 negatives, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we're adding a -2, so we have 2 more negatives. I don't have any 0 pairs here. I don't have any pluses and minuses that can cancel each other out. So we just add all of it up together and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 negatives, giving us that answer of -7. So hopefully you find that one of these ways, whether it's the rules, the counters, or the number line, can help you start to make sense of adding positive and negative numbers. -7. All right, how about -5 plus -7? It's pretty similar to what we just did. My signs are the same. So remember, if your signs are the same, you add them and keep the same sign. So we're going to add 5 plus 7, which would be 12, but you keep the sign the same, making it a -12. Don't forget to check your sign at the end before you hit submit. All right, let's try just a couple more together. What about 3 plus -1? All right, if we use our rules here to help us answer it, my signs are different. +3, -1, meaning I'm going to subtract. 3 minus 1 is 2, and you keep the sign of the heavier number. 3 is heavier. It's the larger absolute value. Therefore, our answer would be a +2. If we want to work this out using counters, we have a +3, so 3 positives, and we have a -1, so 1 negative. We look for any 0 pairs that can cancel. Positive and minus, that's a 0 pair that cancels out. And what are we left with? 2 positives. And then if we use a number line, we would say we start at 3. And then we're adding a -1. So we're taking that -1 away. So we go back 1, and that lands us at our answer of 2. All right, let's do one more problem together. As you get higher in the SMART score, the difference is your numbers are just going to get larger. As you can see here, we have two-digit numbers that we're adding together. But our rules when it comes to positives and negatives, that doesn't change at all. It just may be a little bit more difficult to use the counters or the number line. The rule following strategy might be the best bet as your numbers get larger. But the perk is the counters kind of help you understand. Same with the number line, they help you understand the rule. They help you make sense of why it works. And then if you know why it works, it's easier to remember and use. So we are being told to add. And the first thing I'm going to look for is, do they have the same sign or different? Because my rule is if the signs are the same, you add them and keep the sign. If their signs are different, you subtract and keep the sign of the heavier number. Well, in this case, my signs are different. I have a -17 and a +77. So I'm going to subtract to get 60, and then we keep the sign of the heavier number. 77 is heavier than 17, and because 77 was positive, my answer would be a +60. All right, I hope this video helped. Do remember that if you want to see a little bit more, you can always check out the video that IXL has made. And of course, if you make a mistake, make sure you read through to learn from that mistake and keep referencing your notes, because this just takes practice in order to get it right. If you have any questions, make sure to reach out to your teacher for help. Otherwise, good luck. I know you got this.